Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to make this important commemorative statement of the 50th anniversary of the Economic Community of West Africa States, ECOWAS. I must say that we are not merely celebrating a milestone, we are compelled to engage in a profound and unflinching reflection on the trajectory of our journey. This is a time for critical introspection, a time to acknowledge not only the considerable achievements that have marked our path, but also the complex and multifaceted challenges that now confront us, threatening to derail the progress we have so far diligently pursued. Mr. Speaker, as we celebrate this golden jubilee, we are reminded of our shared aspirations for peace, development, and prosperity. But we are also confronted with a sobering reality, one that demands not only reflection, but urgent and courageous action. Right, Honorable Speaker, the ECOWAS over the last 50 years has demonstrated its capacity to shape the course of our sub-region, from boosting regional economic integration to playing a frontline role in peacekeeping and post-conflict reconstruction. The community has only survived the political and economic turmoil that has afflicted our continent. It has at many points led the way. Remember the successful interventions in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia, which stand as testament to our collective ability to defend democracy and restore constitutional order. We have also witnessed significant stride in fostering the ability to defend democracy and restore constitutional order. We have also witnessed the stride fostering regional peace and stability, the facilitating the free movement of people and goods across our borders, promoting trade liberalization to enhance economic growth, and implementing a diverse array of programs aimed at enhancing the quality of life for our citizens. From infrastructural development to agricultural initiatives, from educational exchanges to cultural collaboration, ECOWAS has played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of our sub-region. However, Mr. Speaker, despite these successes over the past 5 decades, we cannot ignore the significant setback that currently threaten and to unravel decades of integration and cooperation. The West Africa sub-regional bloc, the ECOWAS, faces disintegration. We are witnessing, perhaps more than ever before, the growing fragmentation of our bloc. Recent years have seen challenges to the stability of the bloc, including political unrest, security threats, and the withdrawal or a breakaway of countries from the bloc. On the 28th January 2024, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso announced a joint statement that they were withdrawing from ECOWAS without delay. Following the military coups, the withdrawal was granted in January 2025, even though the tide can still be reversed until July 2025. Today, Mr. Speaker, other countries are expressed their dissatisfaction with our union's ineffectiveness and responsiveness. The very notion of united, peaceful, and integrated West Africa now appears under siege. Right, Honorable Speaker, security challenges ranging from escalating menace of terrorism and violent extremism that spills across our porous borders to the scourge of transnational organized crime, including drug and human trafficking, and the persistent threat of maritime piracy that disrupt the trade and endangers the lives of our people, pose a direct and immediate threat to the safety and well-being of our citizens. The proliferation of this threat has not only created a pervasive climate for a fear and uncertainty that undermines investors' confidence and hindering economic growth, but also diverted scarce resources away from the critical development priorities such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, further exacerbating the vulnerabilities of our populations and perpetuating a vicious cycle of poverty and instability. A significant factor contributing to this is the perceived, in some cases, the undeniable failure of national and regional parliaments to effectively address these multifaceted challenges. This failure can be attributed to a combination of factors, including capacity limitation that hinders our ability to conduct thorough oversight over the executive branch and formulate sound and evidence-based policies, financial constraints that limit our operation effectiveness, independence, and ability to adequately represent the interests of our constituents, and most concerningly, a lack of political will which undermines our ability to take decisive action in the face of difficult choices and to hold those in power accountable for their actions. We parliamentarians must accept our share of responsibility in this regard. We acknowledge that we have not lived up to expectations of our citizens, and we must commit ourselves to doing better. The erosion of public trust in our institution, including parliamentarians, that's ECOWAS Parliament, is seriously a deeply concerning issue that must be addressed with the uttermost urgency. We must strive to enhance legitimacy, strengthen our accountability mechanism, and improve our responsiveness to the needs and aspirations of our people we represent, ensuring that their voices are heard and their concerns are addressed. We stand at a critical juncture, Mr. Speaker, in the history of our region, a moment of profound decision that will determine the future of ECOWAS and the fate of millions of our citizens. The painful lesson, Mr. Speaker, of our past should serve as a stark and sobering reminder of the devastating consequences of division, discord, and failure to address the legitimate grievances of our people. In some member states, there exists a growing perception that ECOWAS is either slow to act or detached from the life realities of our ordinary citizens. Others feel that the mechanisms that we skew are skewed in favor of certain political and economic elites, leaving behind nations whose concern may differ with due to geographical security threats and governance structures. We are tasked with upholding democratic norms, ensuring government's accountability, and safeguarding the rule of law. Yet, to many instances, national parliaments have been sidelined, weakened, or co-opted by narrow interests. The ECOWAS Parliament itself, although a symbol of regional cooperation, has often lacked the teeth to act decisively in moments of continental turbulence. The ECOWAS Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and indeed all national parliaments have a vital, indispensable role to play in ensuring stability, promoting good governance, and fostering sustainable development in our region. Our influence must be brought to bear through a multi-pronged approach that encompasses strengthening our oversight of the executive branches of our government, ensuring that they adhere to democratic principles, upholding the rule of law, and respect fundamental human rights. We must proactively formulate policies that address the root causes of instability, promote inclusive governance that empowers all segments of our society, and foster sustainable development that benefits present and future generations. We must hold the executive arm accountable to the people they serve, ensuring transparency, responsiveness, and meaningful participation in decision-making process. actively engaging in conflict resolution efforts, promoting dialogue, mediation, and reconciliation as alternatives to violence and confrontation, tirelessly and with unwavering determination to restore among member states and between governments and their citizens, and above all, demonstrate political will to act decisively, collectively with a sense of urgency in the face of unprecedented challenges. This is not a time for despair, Mr. Speaker. It is time for leadership. It is time for moral courage, and it's time for vision. We, the parliamentarians of ECOWAS, must rise to this occasion, not merely as a political actors, but also as stewards of the region. Our people look to us not only for laws, but for hope, not only for policies, but for the progress, not only for debates, but for direction. In recent high-level convening held in Abuja, Nigeria, with the theme, ECOWAS at 50, a reform or disintegrate, which pathway for regional bloc? Among others, Mr. Speaker, the participants rose with a call to reform the ECOWAS Parliament to play a more legislative role in the community. 50th anniversary should not just be to celebrate our past, but to commit a future that is more united, more democratic, and more prosperous. In ECOWAS Parliament, we must play a greater role. Let it be said that in the face of regional fragmentation and rising uncertainty, the ECOWAS Parliament stood firm that we found adversity to resolve and to transform our institution, to deepen our integration, and to affirm our faith in a common West Africa destiny. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I urge you, the Right Honorable Speaker, to use your high office as the chair of Conference of Speakers to refer this statement to the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs to further deliberation and presentation of the House to report to ECOWAS Commission in commemoration of the ECOWAS at 50, especially as West Africa seeks to redefine the future of regional integration and resilience. May this moment be our renaissance, not our retreat. Let this golden jubilee be remembered not as a time of decline, but as a beginning of renewal. Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much for your attention. God bless ECOWAS Parliament. May God bless the people of West Africa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Emmanuel K. Bedzrah. Yes, Honorable Muntala Mohammed, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this but very important statement ably made by my senior colleague, one of the experienced members of Parliament in the representation of the ECOWAS Parliament. Mr. Speaker, democracy is the only choice we have. In the 1990s, early 1990s, African countries and in the sub-region decided that the path we must charter would be that of democracy. And I do know that some have argued that we were compelled to democratize because the Western world demanded same, and that financial assistance was actually tied to our ability to democratize. There have been several disagreements to that position. And Professor Ali Mazrui, the celebrated academic and historian, when he delivered a lecture at the Great Hall of University of Ghana, Mr. Speaker, I was present as a student leader and a young undergraduate, and that was the year 2001. Professor Ali Mazrui, in disagreeing with those who have argued that Ghana and many countries in the West Africa sub-region had no choice than to democratize. He gave examples that other leaders in Africa, unlike Ghana and many countries within the West African sub-region, decided not to democratize because they had control over the military, they had control over their countries, and they had control over the systems. But Ghana, indeed, for our love for democracy and for good governance, we charted that path. Now, the expectation of those who wrote the Charter of ECOWAS was that by now, the challenges confronting us would have been challenges of the past. The ultimate objective of ECOWAS was to ease movement of people, goods, and services. Unfortunately, there have been inselbecks, and those inselbecks prevented ECOWAS from achieving the core mandate for which the Charter was written and ratified by member countries. That notwithstanding, a novelty that ECOWAS started was this ECOWAS Parliament, which is a symptom of the representation of sub-regional, aspirations of the people. Unfortunately, many of us in this parliament, even current parliament, may not have an appreciation what ECOWAS Parliament does. And that is a fact. May not even know what the representation is. And I am challenging myself and challenging all of us, and particularly my senior brother, those of whom who are members of the ECOWAS Parliament. There should be an avenue for members of Parliament to be presented as to the works and dealings of ECOWAS. We have had parliamentary retreats for fresh members of Parliament. I'm not too sure whether in the numerous retreats that I have participated in, there has ever been a program where new members of Parliament are taken through as to the representation either at the sub-regional level or the continental level. And for me, that is a defect. Now, if we could have that imbibe into the retreats that we have had, that as part of the aspects we bring in aspects who will take members through, particularly fresh members of Parliament, as to what constitutes ECOWAS representation and the mandate of ECOWAS as far as our collective, advancement of democratic processes are concerned. Mr. Speaker, I would conclude by saying that we have tried different systems of governance. Ghana, we have tried the parliamentary system to the presidential system, and I guess the framers of the 1992 Constitution haven't considered the defects that we have had in the two systems that we practice.
Honourable member be reminded of Order 93.5.
Occasioned the hybrid system. I must say the hybrid system also had its defects. And that is why all of us must be interested in seeing the recommendations of the Constitution Review Commission or Committee to ensure that some of the outstanding suggestions that were made were brought to fruition. And with these few words, Mr. Speaker, I want to once again thank my senior colleague for that outstanding statement made on ECOWAS. Taking into consideration we live at difficult times, cross-border terrorism, cybersecurity, the only way we can find solutions is when we begin to cooperate, we begin to work together, we begin to understand that the challenges confronting us as a sub-region, if they are not the same, but they are similar. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Haji Aladi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by my colleague, Honorable Bedzrah. Mr. Speaker, let me
Second Deputy Speaker to get ready to take the chair.
Let me first of all thank Ghana for being a member and participating honorably in ECOWAS. Ghana has always made sure it participates and has contributed by paying its dues and fees whenever the need arises, as expected. Mr. Speaker, ECOWAS, as we all know, is basically supposed to be catering for the issues of democracy in the 15 countries that form ECOWAS. But what do we see, Mr. Speaker? Notwithstanding the successes that it has chalked, there are a lot of question marks. Today, we have 3 countries that are no longer with ECOWAS, although we are pursuing them, but it's quite difficult because they have their own reasons why they have decided to step aside. Mr. Speaker, the ECOWAS Parliament, for my observation and being a member, I have noted that there is a lot that needs to be corrected. The ECOWAS Parliament is not like all other country parliaments. No. The ECOWAS Parliament has teeth but doesn't bite. We are more or less people who sit back, listen, take decisions, give it out, and sometimes you are not even sure whether it has been implemented or not. This is a very big question mark. And I think that this should be made clear to the Commission that it needs to be looked at. Mr. Speaker, today we're talking about ECOWAS and celebrating it at 50. We are happy we have been able to establish, and we are 50 years old. But there's still a lot to be done. The regional integration, as mentioned, is partial because you cannot even get up from Ghana today and go to Togo without having maybe a passport or an ID card, which shouldn't happen. Our women are unable to cross borders and trade freely. We still refer to them as Togolese, and we refer to ourselves as Ghanaians, and it doesn't end there. There are gaps. Mr. Speaker, the ECO which we thought would come and unite us has still not been implemented for all these years, and is quite worrying. The issue of democracy is a very big question that needs to be looked at again. And I would not run from the fact that a place like Guinea-Bissau, which is still part of ECOWAS and has its members coming and sitting in the ECOWAS Parliament, need to be looked at immediately, and then the problem that they have should be nipped in the bud. Because a government is not formulated, and yet there are members representing the country in ECOWAS Parliament as members of ECOWAS. And there is a gap. If we said that Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, because of the issues or disturbances there, we didn't want their members of parliament to continue to be in ECOWAS. What is the difference between them and Guinea-Bissau? What is the difference? I have asked that question. It's not today I'm asking, and I want it to be considered. I want that this message, if referred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it should be taken by our government and looked at carefully. Otherwise, we will just be sitting and lying in the room while our legs are outside. We will be playing the ostrich. Mr. Speaker, the issue of security is a very big threat in ECOWAS, especially Nigeria, northern Nigeria. The issue of Boko Haram. And the pain is that most of those who are always in trouble are women and children. And the worst aspect of it is that not just women and children, but let me call them pupils or students. And I will say pupils because some of them even are at basic level, primary, and they are normally abducted. We don't know how they end, and we don't know what happens. We are faced with that challenge. In our own country today, the northern sector, and I'll not run away from my constituency, and for that matter, other constituencies around me like Boko, Tempane, and other areas, we have a lot of, we hear, though we haven't seen, we hear and we feel the impact of how terrorists are attacking people and doing whatsoever. We are unable to work on it. I think that this is no longer an issue of just the ECOWAS Parliament, but an issue of all countries coming together, because it wouldn't be affecting only the ECOWAS countries, but I can say that the whole of Africa. However, this notwithstanding, we have some good activities that the ECOWAS Parliament has undertaken, and the last one that we looked at, I am a member of the committee, and we were in Lome, Mr. Speaker, to look at the issue of our transportation, that is, not only by road, by our air fares. And what we were looking at is the cost. Mr. Speaker, if you say you are going to Lome today, you will be paying more than 10,000 to go to Lome by air. And yet, we think that we are fighting for all of us. If I can pay, how many other people can do that? We looked at the issue, and it's about certain taxes that have been put in place. And we had about 186 taxes in place, some of them recurring. So we ensured that most of the taxes that were coming from governments should be taken off. We have presented our report and it has been accepted in order to reduce our air fare. We also looked at the issue of treatment of passengers, the way passengers are handled at airports, especially cancellation of flights, delay of flights, how the agencies or the airlines don't cater for passengers who are stranded. We also looked at that issue. Mr. Speaker, my hope and prayer is that as ECOWAS continues to age, we should achieve our aim of ensuring that at the end of the day, the ECOWAS that we want is what we should have and what we should continue to groom. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and also giving me the opportunity to also contribute to this commemorative statement made by the Honorable Member of Parliament celebrating ECOWAS at 50. I think that the question that I would want to ask is, how is ECOWAS relevant to the ordinary person in my constituency, in Ebrim? So if I go to Ebrim and then I ask ECOWAS, I talk about ECOWAS, how is it relevant to the ordinary person? I think that at the outset, I would say that as compared to the other regional bodies, ECOWAS stands tall. You know, if you should compare ECOWAS to ECOWAS, to SADC, you know, in terms of what we've achieved, I think that we've gone far ahead than the other regional bodies, despite our checkered history. But there's still a lot to be done, because ECOWAS, per the founders, did foresee a situation where people can move freely, within the West African countries. And largely now you can say that people largely, you can travel from, say, Ghana to Nigeria. You can travel from Ghana to Togo. But there are still some hindrances that I think that efforts would have to be made to correct these hindrances. So that if we say that there are free movement of goods and services, there are free movement of people, people should be able to go about, within the confines, within the borders freely, without, people being stopped and then questioned. Again, one thing that I've thought about, that I think that if we're able to do, will make ECOWAS very relevant, will be the possibility of electing members of parliament directly to the ECOWAS parliament. ECOWAS was modeled around the EU and then the other European bodies, regional bodies. Now, if you look at the EU, for example, people contest for elections to be elected on the EU parliament. So once, national elections are being held, they also go around campaigning, and then they talk about European issues. So if we are able to elect people onto this parliament, people will go around radio stations, go around campaigning, go to their constituencies, talking about ECOWAS, the need for us to support the cause, explaining what ECOWAS does to the ordinary person. Like the minister said, now even in parliament, members of parliament, we don't even know what happens at the ECOWAS parliament. Here, we don't know. Because hardly do we even receive reports from our senior members, our members who attend these meetings. So I think that one thing that if we're able to do would excite people, to know about what is happening within the parliament of ECOWAS, will be having people directly elected, so that people don't even have to come here and then be nominated to that parliament. Mr. Speaker, that said, I want to conclude by also saying that ECOWAS is all that we have. They've done a lot within the regional body. Now, until recently, we used to have all the 15 countries having leaders who were democratically elected. Until recently, that we've had 3 countries, going the other way around. But I'm confident that the leadership that we have, within the body, will try and then get these 3 countries on board, for all of us to recognize that the vision of our founders, the vision is being realized, and that all the objectives that were set for the formation of ECOWAS are being realized. That said, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the maker of this commemorative statement, and then hope that we all join the chorus in celebrating this milestone achieved by the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, let me commend the maker of the statement for the very detailed presentation on the 50 years journey of ECOWAS. Mr. Speaker, as we mark 50 years of ECOWAS, we do so with pride and purpose. Pride in our forebears who saw the wisdom in unity, and purpose for the tedious work that lies ahead. Mr. Speaker, ECOWAS was founded on 3 main goals: regional integration, economic cooperation, and collective self-reliance. And if we are to be frank with ourselves, Mr. Speaker, we know that that dream remains more relevant today than ever before. Because from trade to security, from migration to youth development, all the challenges that we face within the sub-region are interconnected, and so must our solutions be. We must approach issues of youth unemployment and challenges with our economies from a continental or a regional point of view. It is only through that, Mr. Speaker, we can address some of these challenges. But Mr. Speaker, the aspiration for regional integration is often undermined by bureaucratic inertia, by protectionist policies, and insufficient political will. As a member of parliament for a constituency that shares boundary with other West African countries, I must say it is very sad the challenges that our people, especially local traders, even go through just to transact business or to ply their trade across the borders. I want to use this opportunity to call on the government to facilitate processes to make trade within the sub-region easier. And want to use this opportunity to remind the Ministry of Trade and also to remind His Excellency the President that as we promised the people of Ketu North, people of Ketu South, an ECOWAS market which we believe will eliminate the challenges that our cross-border traders are currently confronted with, this is the right time to ensure that such policies are implemented. I call on the House to support the maker of the statement in his wish that this statement be referred to the appropriate authorities, especially the Committee on Foreign Affairs, for some pragmatic actions to be taken. Because, Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue talking about ECOWAS only by making flowery speeches. The next 50 years for ECOWAS must be about impact, real impacts that must reflect in the lives of our people. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I humbly submit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to also add my voice to commend the maker of the statement, Honorable Bedzrah, and also contribute or say a few words. Mr. Speaker, just like all the other African economic blocs, the CENSAD, the EEC, COMESA, Bedzrah, all of them, Mr. Speaker, there have been some significant achievements, significant progress. But aside the significant progress, there have been some huge challenges. Mr. Speaker, and one will ask, why was it necessary for these economic communities to be formed? Because largely was to help integrate largely in trade, economic integration. Speaker, but that core fundamental basis for the formation of all the economic communities today are struggling. Speaker, you cannot have a successful trade among economic members in COMESA. You cannot have same in CENSAD. You cannot have same in EEC. You cannot have same in Maghreb. Same as ECOWAS. Major challenges. Why are these major challenges happening? These major challenges are happening because of something we have not averted our minds to. Mr. Speaker, and that is the migration of everything Africa to the world. There has been a conscious effort by foreigners, by outside world, to tap into the trade that we do in Africa. You will see China-Africa Trade Conference. You will see Russia-African Trade Conference. You will see Europe-African Trade Conference. You will see US-African Trade Conference. What is the point? The point is to tap into the trade that we have that is helping, that would improve our system and economy and create jobs for our people, and rather we are having it with them. So our leadership are unable to build infrastructures that will help us have that trade smoothly. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is extremely expensive to trade between two African countries than to trade between an African country and China, an African country and Russia, an African country and US. Extremely. We have African countries that even when you are traveling to, you would have to move to an European country before coming back to an African country. Because when these things are happening, it will be difficult for the core basis and fundamental reason for the formation of all the economic communities be achieved. Mr. Speaker, one of the major challenges, now I'm coming to ECOWAS, is our leadership inefficiency to deal with the crippling terrorism, the crippling political instability in our continent. Mr. Speaker, just quite recently, we nearly saw another coup d'etat in Côte d'Ivoire. We nearly saw another coup d'etat in Côte d'Ivoire. Mr. Speaker, we have not resolved the ones in Mali. We've not resolved the ones in Niger. We are not done with the one in Burkina Faso. And we are going to have another one in Côte d'Ivoire. Why? Because of a certain influence that the foreigners keep on exerting on us, that our leadership are not able to speak truth to power. That is why we have been in this conundrum. Mr. Speaker, it is important to move forward, to be celebrating 50 years. We must be able to stand on our feet and say that, look, we have come of age and we have leadership that are able to deal with their issues. Mr. Speaker, African Union launched a book and launched a time where we say, African solution for African problems. Mr. Speaker, I am yet to find one African country that practically has found an African solution to its problems. Difficult. We do not even have. We don't have the wherewithal, the political powers to do that. Mr. Speaker, the next thing we'll talk about is the security challenges. It is critical that the stand-up forces that we have in all the economic unions are well equipped, well resourced to be up to the task. A critical example was the Niger one. When we were looking for a stand-up force to go to Niger, we hardly found one because none of the areas, none of the countries had the might or the powers to do so. So we cannot be talking about integration without critically looking at some of these key ingredients that make an integration an integration. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I want to thank you and then also commend the maker of the statement, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me join colleagues to commend my colleague, the Honorable Emmanuel K, Bedzrah, for this commemorative statement. ECOWAS is 50 years old, and I think that it is time to look back and see how far we have come. Very often, we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it. I have listened to the comments made, and many of them tend to be skeptical about the prospects of the organization. They tend to be doubtful about what it is that the organization has achieved. But I want to say that I have traveled a bit, and I know that in spite of its failings, the ECOWAS model as a sub-regional organization, an effort at integration by a bloc of 15 countries, is one that is actually envied on the continent of Africa, because none of the sub-regional organizations have achieved as much as ECOWAS has achieved. Fundamentally, at the core of the ECOWAS principle the establishment principle is free movement of goods and persons. Arguably, there have been some limits when it comes to the free movement of goods. But as for the free movement of persons, ECOWAS, more than any other sub-regional organization, has been very, very successful. You travel freely across the sub-region. Nobody really stops you. Once you're able to establish your documentation as a citizen of one of the member countries. Remember that even though it is free movement, it is free movement of only ECOWAS citizens, citizens of the member countries. So at least there is a need to prove that you are a citizen of a member country. And that is why some identification becomes necessary. Because we have 4 other, I think, sub-regional blocks, and there are about 35 other countries. So we need to establish that these are our citizens or citizens of member countries who can then enjoy the right to move within the sub-region unhindered. Of course, there will be challenges here and there, challenges at the borders, infrastructure challenges, but all in all, the principle of free movement of persons is highly respected and regarded in the sub-region. And I think that ECOWAS stands tall when you compare us with most other sub-regional organizations. I believe that the effort towards creating a common market, which is the other key pillar of ECOWAS, an economic community, has been challenged. And the challenge is resulting from the fact that the sub-region is divided between a Francophone bloc and an Anglophone bloc, and that has tended to stand in the way of getting greater integration, because the Francophone bloc tends to be drawn into their relationship with Europe, and particularly France, and then among themselves, their relationships. They are so integrated that they use a common currency, and so that makes them have a stronger tie. But the Anglophone countries don't use a common currency. And the Anglophone countries tend not to be contiguous in terms of territory. But the Francophones somehow have been lucky and tend to be contiguous. And it's perfectly possible within the sub-region for someone to travel through all the Francophone countries without passing through an Anglophone country. But the Anglophone countries tend to be surrounded by the Francophone countries. If you take Liberia and Sierra Leone, 2 very small countries, they are surrounded by Francophones. You take Ghana, surrounded by Francophones. You take Nigeria, surrounded by Francophones. And so the Anglophone countries are having a greater challenge in terms of uniting, in terms of working as a common bloc in relation to the Francophone bloc. And that has, throughout the various institutions of ECOWAS, permeated and affected the working relationship between the citizens of the various member states. Mr. Speaker, it is hoped that democracy, which has been adopted as the guiding principle in terms of the governance of the individual countries, would have done better. Unfortunately, it still remains very challenged and the situation has been exacerbated by recent developments in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, and a few other countries. Our brothers in Togo are struggling. There are challenges in Benin. Guinea-Bissau has issues. So democracy is seriously being challenged in the sub-region. And we need to work together to help one another to be able to do well. Fundamentally, the ECOWAS experiment would have done very well if one or two of the very strong countries economically were a very good example to the rest of the countries and use its economic capacity, military might, and resources to ensure discipline within the sub-region. Ideally, that candidate for disciplining, cajoling, helping the rest of the countries to do well would have been Nigeria. Unfortunately, Nigeria, with its size as a market, Nigeria with its size in terms of population, Nigeria with its natural resource endowments, would have been the anchor for a very successful sub-regional organization, both in terms of military might, ensuring discipline, resources, helping out brothers when they are in trouble, and opening up their market so that industries will emerge in others, and then they will benefit from the Nigerian market and keep the economies of others also doing well, whilst Nigeria also benefits. Because Nigeria hasn't really lived up to expectation, the sub-region has been challenged. Ghana is emerging as a sub-regional leader, but of course, Ghana is challenged. Ghana doesn't have the advantage of population, the advantage of resource endowments like Nigeria, and the advantage of a market like Nigeria, and its military capabilities definitely cannot compare to Nigeria. Yet, Ghana is the country that has, I believe, the moral authority within the sub-region today to offer leadership. That leadership is being offered. I believe that given our commitments as one of the founding fathers, not only of ECOWAS alone, but of the Africa Union, I believe that we will be able to do whatever we can to bring the sub-region together. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on and on and on, but I think that overall, we've done well. There are challenges, there are serious threats now, but I am very, very convinced that as a sub-region, we will rise up to the occasion, we will mend our fences, we will reunite, reorganize, we will make a more spirited effort to entrench democracy, we will share and open up our markets. And again, we will be each other's keeper, because that was the founding principle that guided our leaders when they met 50 years ago to sign that we should form a common market, a union of a sub-region of Africa. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, let me first thank my colleague, Honorable Emmanuel K Bedzrah, for a well-researched statement, very insightful. I've had the benefit of reading his statement before my comment. Considering the industry that went into the writing of this statement, I would want to take your leave and share some glory with him in Hansa. I would therefore adopt this statement in its entirety. as though they were mine. Having said that, I also want to anchor my submissions first on a very profound statement coming from my senior in ECOWAS, senior at the bar, senior in this chamber, and the leader of this house. He says, quote, Ghana has a moral authority in the sub-region to provide leadership. And why the moral authority in the sub-region to provide leadership? Because of our democracy. In my early days in the sub-region, when I arrived in one of the countries, I thought the airport was, we were doing transit. So when we got out and they said, oh, we've arrived, they said, this is it. And then we checked into a hotel, and the program was supposed to take place at a supposed 5-star hotel. And when we also got there, I said, is that the place? They said, yes. I said, hey, Ghana. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the Lord has blessed this country. Quite recently, I've been talking about the need for us as a country, particularly with the political class, to bring an end to this I do you, I do you. This, if you do me, I'll do you. This, if I get power, I'll show you where the power lies. There are certain petty things left for us to do. And if we are done, if we get these things resolved, we would have given it a fine-tuning. And I would say proudly that democracy in Ghana has come to stay. Mr. Speaker, if the majority leader is calling on Ghana to take leadership in the sub-region, what it means is that we need to do a lot as a country. And a lot depends on us as a political class. With the emerging social media and the level of expectation of our youth, if care is not taken, we would find ourselves on the wrong side of history. Let us build the institutions. Let's know the limits of the politics and where national issues begin. If we trivialize issues, one day we may have some challenges. If you look at the 2024 elections and you study the data, particularly the Greater Accra presidential result, the turnout, Greater Accra is where all the politics is done. Yet, if you look at the turnout was 55%. What does that tell? What does that mean? Or what does this data tell us? That some 45% of our people have lost confidence in the politics of our country and have lost confidence in us, in we the politicians. They listen to us, yet they don't believe us. And when you are involved in this enterprise called democracy, and the very people you are serving don't believe in you, then they'll be looking for the alternative. And when looking for the alternative, they don't care about capacity. I repeat, in all the countries that suffered revolution in recent history, it is no more about who is coming. It's about we are fed up with the system. Let us be careful. And I've been cautioning this over and over again. And I didn't start this when I entered into the left side of Mr. Speaker. I started it when I was on the right side of Mr. Speaker. The expectation is high. The expectation is unbearable. But our conduct will give rise to certain consequences. Let me share a story with you, colleagues. Harun Eseku, of blessed memory, he was once upon a time a member of this house, particularly the Second Republic. He represented Awutu Efutu Senya constituency. Eseku told me that once upon a time, some members of his own fraternity were so upset, including even the opposition. And at a point, it got out of hand. Eventually, when the interventionists arrived, it made no difference between the governing party that it was overthrowing and the opposition that it came to meet. They all met at Nsawam. You and I, when on the streets, the people will make no distinction. You think you are MPP or NDC? No. They will see us as politicians who have failed them. Let us be mindful of our actions. For now, you have the government. We will support you with our constructive criticism to make democracy better, so that this country can provide the needed leadership in the sub-region. But you must equally tolerate us, accommodate us, and manage our views, because that is the beauty of the game called democracy. We cannot come and everything is being polarized. Everything is partisan. Ghana is not celebrating hard work, industry, and merits. It has to be whom you know. If I get power, I'm looking for who? Because I'm an MPP, I'm looking for who is an NDC for me to destroy. And when the time comes and you also get yours, you now will say, it is your time. It is also NDC's time, let's destroy. All we have is our country, Ghana. If you see the way other countries are failing, if you see the way some of the democracies in the sub-region are having challenges, it's because the politicians in those jurisdictions took things for granted. And Ayana say Eba and Kaio, it becomes sudden. Mr. Speaker, when you are about to suffer a calamity, you don't get any form of notice. It just comes, pam. So the Ghanaian political class, the concern what is happening in the sub-region, which has become the subject matter of our discussions today, should guide us, should remind us in how we posture. Mr. Speaker, whilst at it, let me commend those who came before me, were part of the ECOWAS infrastructure. Ghana indeed made significant contributions in the sub-region. Ghanaians who went to ECOWAS Parliament, Ghanaians who were part of ECOWAS Commission. I don't have the time to mention names, but any Ghanaian who entered the sub-region, be it an administrator, a parliamentarian, distinguished himself and herself. And, Mr. Speaker, all these contributions have made our country, Ghana, a shining example in the sub-region. Mr. Speaker, ECOWAS, as has already been said by the maker of the statement, made some efforts to ensure regional stability. There were several challenges in the sub-region that through its efforts in diplomacy, it ensured political stability. Today, ECOWAS is 50. We've been told of the numerous challenges. I can say that the clear vision that was established for integration, peace, development have seen significant strides in promoting economic cooperation, but we can do more. Mr. Speaker, recently I was doing some business in Tablibo in Togo. I was cutting some gypsum from Tablibo in Togo all the way to Aplawo, then to Bupe to support some cement production. And I know the difficulties I went through crossing the border, speaking English in a Francophone country. My drivers, sometimes they get arrested. You show your ECOWAS card, nobody would mind you and all. So practically, our traders who cross all the way to Nigeria, those who cross the border by road to Abidjan, are they experiencing the integration in its real form and shape? So that is a challenge that I believe that we must encourage our government to ensure that integration, free movement of persons, free movement of goods, intra-West African trade is properly enhanced. We trade more with those outside of the sub-region than we do from within. And indeed, is it that some of the goods cannot be found within the sub-region? Today we are concentrating so much on using gold to stabilize our currency. But what we've forgotten is that we can also encourage intra-West African trade, where liquidity remain within the sub-region, and that in itself can also help stabilize our various economies. We need to do that so that we will have a broad spectrum of opportunities for our various countries. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, ECOWAS established an arm of government called ECOWAS Parliament with only deliberative functions, but with no enactment powers. ECOWAS Parliament has only been a chamber that deliberates, and when it deliberates, it gets nowhere. I am sure that our colleagues who are yearning to go to ECOWAS Parliament have a lot of dreams and high hopes, not to disappoint them. But when you get there, those of you who are coming in new, when you get there, unfortunately, all the things you say may not have any force of law. You only talk, and you leave. I think that our heads of authority will have to look at this to empower the parliament of the sub-region to have legislative functions. At least they've done that for the judiciary arm. The ECOWAS court now is able to make certain legal pronouncements that are enforced in member countries. If that has been done for the judiciary, then our heads of state, heads of authorities, heads of government may have to look critically at empowering the parliament of the sub-region to look at laws that would enhance integration, look at laws that would help the cause of ECOWAS, Because, Mr. Speaker, the only central force to hold democracy together is its parliament. Democracy without a functional parliament cannot stand. The reason why Ghana, we've survived, is not because of the judiciary, it's not because of the institutions that make up the executive, it's because of parliament. The people's representatives. The people have confidence that when things get out of hand, their representatives will speak for them. Mr. Speaker, I would want to make this strong suggestion, and without more, call on my colleague, the majority leader, to engage His Excellency the President at Cabinet to initiate the championing of the views expressed on this House regarding empowering ECOWAS Parliament with real legislative functions. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am the third Deputy Speaker, as it's been already said. That comes without doubt. It is so. But what is it about third Deputy Speaker who only presides over a chamber that only deliberates without any legislative power? Mr. Speaker, your gavel becomes effective when what is said can be enforced or become a subject matter of interpretation by a court. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that the respected Ayariga, who himself for many years was part of that chamber and now leading government business, can table this before His Excellency the President so that when he meets his colleagues, he brings this up, because judiciary arm of ECOWAS now has those powers. The only one left is the parliament, and even when we go on mission, because you don't have any powers, you go there and sometimes you are snubbed and you come back home quietly. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe my respected colleague will take that up. That said, let me thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that special waiver, because after leader speaking, nobody else I would have to speak, but you granted me that opportunity to speak, and I would want to thank you for being magnanimous in that regard. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
For your kind
Thank you very much.